Hi everyone, welcome to part 6 of our Frogger mini-series, and this will be an optional video in the series as we're just adding some custom code to make the project easier to work in. Let's not waste any time and just jump right into it. Alright, so first thing we're going to do is we're going to go to our content drawer. We're going to create a new folder. This one will be, we'll call textures and materials. We'll double click to open that up. And we're going to right click and we're going to create a new material. We're going to call this m_holographic. And essentially what we're doing is we're going to be creating basically a preview mesh for all the components we drop in the level. So we could see kind of where they'll go, how they'll line up. This is a trick I saw at one of the Unreal Engine's demos they did a few years back. I think Chris Murphy was the presenter. So it's a really good trick if you're doing any sort of platforming stuff. So I'll spend a few minutes just kind of go over it. So we'll double click, open this up. And with the material selected and the left hand side, we're going to set the blend mode to translucent. Then we're going to hold the number 3 key and click in the graph. That'll give you a constant 3. We're going to hook that into the color. You can pick any color you want. I'm going to go with a blue. And then we want a Fresnel, so just type in Fresnel, press enter. We'll then need to multiply, so you can hold M, click in the graph, and it'll automatically add a multiply node. We'll hook that into the A pin for the Fresnel, and we'll put the output into the opacity. You can see we're starting to get our holographic look. What we can do is we can use a sine wave. Sine typically is -1 to 1. We only need 0 to 1, so we can use a sine remapped. We'll plug that in here. And then the sine phase, we can pull off that into a time node to get that pulse. And if you want to control the membrane wall thickness, we can just hold 1, click in the graph to get a constant 1 value. Plug that into value 1, and then you can play with the values. I think somewhere between 2 and 5 usually works pretty good. For this effect. We'll then save our material. That's now complete. We're going to open up our content drawer. We'll go back to our blueprints folder, and we're going to open up the parent blueprint, BP_moving objects. That was the one we were working in on the previous video. So last we left off, we were in the construction script. So we're going to head back there, and we're going to pull off the control points, and we're going to do a for each loop. Now the for each loop can take in an array, so it'll basically iterate across the number of items in the array, which is perfect. But what we'll need to do is we'll need to split the array element. So right click, split structure pin, and that'll make it so we have access to the location of the control point. We're then going to pull into a add static mesh component. And then we're going to right click on the transform and split it. So it gives us access to the vector location. And then we can just pass vector to vector. And then we can use the target as just self. And then all the other defaults are actually fine here. The next thing we need to do is we'll need to pull off into a set static mesh. And then the return value is going to be the target, but the new mesh we don't know. What we're going to do is we're going to right click and promote that to a variable. And I'm going to call this my preview mesh. We'll drag that down here. And then for this mesh that we create, we will want to add a material to it. The return value on the static mesh component will go into the target field here. And then the material is, of course, the one we just created called m_holographic. So what does this all do? So effectively what we're doing is for each control point, we're going to create some preview static mesh, and we're going to apply that holographic material to it. Now there is an issue with this code, but we'll come back to it. I just kind of want to demo it out for you first to see what it's doing. What we can do is we're going to open up one of our child instances, which We only made one so far, so it was BP_Cadillac. And then if you click the root component, you'll notice in the details panel, you have a new field called preview mesh, which we didn't have before. And that's coming from this variable right here. So now we can set this to be, ideally, it's going to be the vehicle mesh, which we don't have one made. We're going to make that in the next video. But for now, I think we'll use one of the cubes. Let's try this one. That might be the wrong one. I can't remember. No, that was the right one. Okay. So now you might notice that we have these little preview meshes kind of coming around there. And those are kind of like a nice to have because you can, like, as you're moving your control points around, you can see exactly how well the mesh is gonna like butt in or like meet or join with a particular area of the map. That's great for platforming because sometimes you need your platforms to go in a very specific location, and it's a pain if you're just doing that through, you know, the transform gizmo here. So it's much easier to be able to move an actual component and get a preview of exactly what it's going to look like. So like as an instance, if I spawned another one out here, oops, and then I come over here, I could drag this up. Notice we don't see any preview. The preview comes from the control points. So if I were to add like a bunch of control points here, and then I move one on the X, and then I move one on the Y, you know, I can then basically kind of drag these around to exactly where I need them, and I get a nice little preview of when that's happening, and then we can set the you know, like the duration and stuff as it moves between these points, and it just kind of makes it a little bit simpler when you're building. Now you'll see there's an issue is when we play the project, we can not only see the preview mesh, which we don't want to, but the other issue is that there's collision set up with this. You can see it affects my camera when it comes over me. So to fix that, we're gonna go back into the parent object, the BP_moving object, and then the function to add the static mesh component. If you highlight that and then go to the details panel, you can search for rendering, and we can make it hidden in game but visible in editor. So that way we can see and preview where the mesh is going to go. And then the other thing we can do is we can go to collision, and instead of block all dynamic, we're just going to set no collision. Because as a preview mesh, we don't really need it to, you know, to collide with anything. So we just need to be able to see it in editor, which makes our lives easier. You know, if we're basically adding, like for this project is, you know, probably not needed because it's very simple, but if you're doing any sort of prototyping where, you know, you have 12 or 15 platforms per level and maybe you have like 20 levels, you know, moving these things around can become a chore very quickly. They don't scale very well. So having this sort of system where you can do this and you can actually see exactly where the mesh is going to go, you can line everything up, that's great. And then when you play, you just watch it and it actually works, right? So just thought I'd spend a few minutes just to show you that little trick. And now that we have it set up in our parent blueprint, it'll cascade and work for all our child blueprints. So when we set up our logs, our turtles, our vehicles, you know, the cars, trucks, sedans, whatever, we'll have this little nice to have built in. So it'll make our lives a little bit easier. But all right, everyone, we'll cut the video here to keep it short, but in the next one, we'll set up the static mesh for the car, and we'll add some animations to bring a little more life to the blueprint. But as always, thanks for watching, consider subscribing, and we'll see you on the next one.